Hello and welcome back to Down the Slope. We've got a very different cast tonight. It's a special episode. It's not Specky and Spice. It's Specky and Connolly. Ryan, you've joined us once again. How are you doing, mate?
I'm all right, mate. Yourself?
Much better for seeing you. Just to update all the fans of all our other friends on the podcast, we've got a couple of people ill. We've got a couple of people. Well, we've got one person busy. You can guess who is who. But yeah, we are with the lovely Ryan tonight, and we're going to talk all things Hibs, which 2 weeks ago, Ryan, was a good time, whereas now not so much.
Three defeats on the bounce. It kind of feels like everything's going to pot at the minute, doesn't it?
Aye, and it's a bit like obviously I hate this saying like free hit, but the Celtic game is not really one you expect to win. But the other two games, it's frustrating looking back because like we would be clear and third if we picked up 6 points there.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, even the noise that Hearts fans are making now would be even further ahead of them.
It's mental though because like literally if we'd won those two games, they'd be asking for Nielsen out, but because we're doing pish as well, they don't care. Idiots,
I wonder if they
idiots.
would still be comparing Lon Shanklin's goals to our strikers' goals if we were 6 points further ahead of them.
But to be fair, if we were 6 points further ahead, our strikers would probably get their finger out and start scoring, eh?
Ah, well, that's maybe where the problem lies, eh?
Aye, God, but we could dive into that soon. But let's go through the positives. So obviously, a few teams in Scotland are trying it out again. We don't really have the reasoning. I think it's just kind of an experiment. But game was on Friday night. For me, I think it was a really great thing. I think the ticket incentive, especially bringing it down, we touched on it last week, and bringing the ticket prices down for fans and making it accessible for everyone was really nice. And it was so good to actually see a sold out Easter Road, like all four stands, chock a block. Just how happy does that make you? I know you go all across the country and you've been there through thick and thin when there's like 6,000 fans at Partick Thistle at home in the Championship. How buzzing does it make you to see
Oh,
Easter Road full?
I think it's great. I think in order for the team really to thrive to their full potential, they need the backing from the fans, and full stadiums do that. For any player, when you hear them talking about playing for a club, the fans is a big part of that. So I think for them to play in front of nearly 20,000 people is a massive incentive, or it should be, to go and put on a performance. Unfortunately, Friday night didn't come to fruition, but going forward, it'd be great if we could attract these big crowds, and whether that's through low ticket initiatives, having the games on a Friday. Like, I think it's great to get more people through the gates.
And for me, obviously, I don't hate me, guys, and call me a part timer. Only second game of the season, came up from London for it. I was going to go to another one, but there a certain person died, and it ruined my weekend plans. But for this one, nobody died and ruined my weekend plans, so I got to go to this game. And it's a phrase that I'm not going to lie, kind of makes me cringe a bit. But under the lights, Easter Road, a beautiful thing. It was wonderful. It was great. I think that it kind of adds to the atmosphere. Obviously, they get the fire out before the game and stuff. And then they also decided to bring out the violin. An unusual addition. Did you see the violin yourself, Ryan?
I seen it, and it actually reminded me of the opera singer last year. Now, I'm not going to say too much because I know that was a school friend of yours, Harry. So, yeah, it was shades of that, and I'm thinking, geez, they've got it wrong twice now.
Yeah. Um, because see, the thing is for me, like I don't ever mind people trying something a bit different, but
Of course.
just don't hype it up quite as loud as that. I'm getting confused because the tweet itself hyping it up was like, there will be loud music. And I'm expecting, I don't know
Yeah.
what I expected, but like, you know, that really weird segment in Sunderland Till I Die when the guy's talking about how he's going to make the atmosphere, the music. That's what I'm expecting to walk into. No, a violin playing, what do you call it, Freed from Desire. But,
I
you
thought
know,
I thought Rent Boy from Trainspotting was maybe going to come out and do a song and a dance for us, eh? But a violin was a wee bit of
uh,
a different take.
aye, nah. But at least they're trying new things, and I'm sure there's an audience that isn't myself and yourself, or most of the people listening, realistically, that are quite into that type of thing. So fair play for trying. I'm not knocking them for that. I'm just knocking them for the actual execution. Uh, but we
Well, whoever that
digress.
audience
Yeah.
is are definitely among the Tory West stand. So that's all I'm going to say on the matter.
And they were closer to the West Stand, so they'll be happy with that. But yeah, let's move on to the worst part of the night. As always with the Hibs, I had a great time in the pub with some of the guys before the game. Had a great time just being in Easter Road once again. It's so much better actually being there and just taking in the atmosphere, shouting all your invented at referees. But the football had to ruin it. Let's start with the team lineup. 3-5-2. Ryan, walk us through the team.
So Marshall and goals. Then we had the back three of Rocky, Hanlon, and Porteous. Cadden probably playing in his more preferred position at right wing back. Cabraha left wing back, which we haven't really seen much of playing in that kind of advanced position. And then we obviously had Campbell in newell midfield, McGuinness getting his first start of the season behind Boyle and Kukurevich, which when it came out, I mean, I was surprised that he changed shape because all the noises that were coming out were that he was kind of dedicated to this 4-3-3 formation. So I didn't actually think that he was going to do it so soon after, all the talk of him being so loyal to this formation. Initially, I was actually happy enough with the team, to be honest with you. The personnel suited all the positions, and it looked fairly attacking. People might think it's negative playing that kind of formation, but you've got to remember it gives you quite an attacking advantage down the sides with the two wing backs, where you can sit with three at the back and basically pile bodies forward to create spaces. St Johnstone sit in 10 men behind the ball quite a lot, so I suppose they were looking to try and pull their players from side to side effectively. But whether or not they actually followed through with that game plan is a different matter.
Yeah, because it's the type of thing when you've got like that kind of five is most people see that formation as like a 5-3-2, whereas as you say, when the players are playing up and down the wing as much as they were, it does kind of change more into a 3-5-2 with the like players almost like at times Cadden was almost a winger in the game and Lappin or Boyle.
Yeah.
So definitely like just because it looks like a defensive formation doesn't necessarily mean it is.
In effect, I don't think it's. I don't think it should be when it's deployed at home against a St Johnstone. I mean, there is occasions where you might play five at the back for the reasons that you're playing against a stronger opposition away from home. But in that scenario, I think he done it so that he got the most out of Cadden, especially because he's seen his cross for the goal. That's what he's capable of when he's playing in that kind of position. But I think it was in order to be able to pull them around the pitch a wee bit more to create spaces for the attacking players.
Yeah, definitely. And being honest, let's get into the actual game itself. I think we started really well. It's something that we've tapped on a few times this season. Under Lee Johnson, we do start the games with really high intensity, and we absolutely battered them. I thought the atmosphere for the first like 15, 20 minutes was rocking. Everybody was getting behind the team. We weren't really leathering the goal, but we were putting crosses in the box and just putting pressure on and pressure on. And it was, the goal, it felt like it was coming from the very first minute. Like we were just kind of pestering them and battering them the whole time.
Aye.
And being honest, I cannot fault them for the first 20 minutes of the game. I was proper up for it. As I said, it was the first time I've been back since the Hearts game. So the only games I've been to this season are sellouts. So I'm doing myself a charm. But yeah, the atmosphere was good. And it just felt like we were going to give someone a pasting. That's the vibe I got in that first 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, as you've said there, the intensity that we start the games with has been something that has changed over the course of the last six to eight games, especially at home. I think we start with a lot of intensity. This is obviously Johnson starting to implement his style of play in terms of the intensity that he talks about. But I think that only implementing it for the first 20 minutes or only being able to carry it out for the first 20 minutes, if you don't score within that 20 minutes, then your chances are going to come a wee bit harder to come by, which obviously isn't great when we're not taking the chances we're already creating.
Yeah, because if we're being totally honest, it was a very bad St Johnstone team we were playing. I've used the word cowardly. I used the word cowardly last week, and I think it's a perfect way to typify their football under Callum Davidson. I think that when like as I always say, credit to them for winning both cups. Nobody can ever take that away from him. And in my opinion, he's a Scottish football legend for managing to achieve that with St Johnstone. But they're just not a good side to watch ever. Even when they won the cup, it was boring. They'd score from set pieces. They would just sit in the whole time. I think they're such a turgid team, and it just frustrates me that we couldn't get that goal earlier on.
Yeah, I think it would panned out to probably be a totally different game had we scored earlier, because then they might have capitulated in terms of. They're not really a team that tend to capitulate, but I mean, we might have managed to go in and get another before half time, and then it's a totally different ball game. But
and in that atmosphere as well, like it's hard.
Exactly.
Like, if the home crowd are that up for it and they've scored and stuff, like it does feel like the world's against you, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, the thing that always gets me when we play St Johnstone is I always think of football needing to get a game clock, and they're the team that I think that the most about. I mean, you can talk about teams across Europe, Atletico Madrid, and teams in the lower end of the Premier League, but I think St Johnstone are the worst for giving their fans value for money in terms of the amount of football they get to see. And with a sellout Easter Road, that affects all the fans that were there as well, you know. And
no,
that's their game plan. That they plan to do that, play for set pieces, waste their time, and nick a point or a win, which they managed to do.
Yeah, but we'll start with the biggest positive of the game. We're not going to go too much in depth. When we lose games, we don't want to reflect on the game too much. But main moment in the first half, as you touched on earlier, Chris Cadden, he put a few choice crosses in, but that cross, absolutely beautiful ball, whipped in, and Kukarevich, quite a header to be fair. That's a couple of times this season we've
Aye.
seen some absolute screamers of headers from Hibs players, and that's exactly what you want from your big man up top.
Oh, it was lovely. It was like one of those cultured headers where he kind of gets enough on it to kind of glance it away from the keeper. But this is what I'm saying about the wing backs. In situations like that, it can create an overload so that you've got 2v1 or sometimes you've got a triangle or 3v2 in that situation, which gives Cadden a wee bit more time as opposed to running towards the byline one on one. So when he's got the time, he's picked out a beautiful cross there, right in the big man's head. Bang, there's your dinner.
And that took us into halftime quite nicely. And I think the shot count at halftime it was like 9 shots to 1. Like we absolutely pasted them. Nobody in the world
I
could have
battered
denied
them.
that Hibs deserved to be ahead and probably should have been by more if we could bloody bury our chances. But with Hibs, we can't. That seems to be the story of our last 3 seasons. But yeah, so going into halftime, were you relatively confident? Just thinking, all we have to do is kind of see this game out now, keep the same levels up.
Yeah, I thought it would just be a case of going out and kind of playing to the playing to the crowd a little bit, not in terms of showboating, but kind of expressing themselves a wee bit more, and maybe going and getting a second goal, and then from then you would see a couple of subs come on, and the game would just peter out. Because for all intents and purposes, that's what it looked like was going to happen.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then second half came, and being honest, I was quite frustrated from maybe like 50 minutes onwards. I felt that like there was that dead period in the first half for maybe like 20 minutes to pretty much until the goal that we just didn't really look at it, and I think that we kind of took that into the second half, which is really annoying. I
Aye,
just
aye.
as you touched on earlier, like if we have moments of like sustained pressure, we need to be able to pick that up at different periods of the game. Otherwise, what's the point? And that was kind of
Mm.
situation I felt that we'd kind of fallen into. And the thing is, we were picking up book in after book in, and then Kukarevich ended up getting subbed just because he'd picked up a yellow in the first half for consistent fouling. Then he got away with another 2 fouls. So fair enough, he had to go off. But him going off, it feels like we're really reliant on him at the moment to actually get the team up the field. And it feels like as soon as he went off the field, we just kind of lost that core focal point that you kind of need in
Focal
games like
point,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's obviously kind of a factor in the style of football that Johnson is trying to play when he has that kind of focal point and the whole team play around that. Like you say, you kind of rely on that to get you up the park, or if you're cutting balls up the line, he makes the runs into the channel. And as you say, without him, it kind of takes something away from what the team have maybe been geared to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely was to a disadvantage that we did have to sub him off.
And do you think it is a we had to sub him off? Could you point that as a potential mistake from Johnson, or would you say that realistically
Well,
with the full output he had to come off?
the argument and evidence is that Kyle McGuinness ended up getting himself in hot water
Yeah.
for something you could say might have happened to Kukarevich.
Yeah. It was
So
one of those ones that like from beginners. We'll just come on to that now. It's a stupid challenge. It doesn't need to do it at all. The referee like it's one of those ones. It's a definite yellow. I'm not denying that, but a different referee wouldn't give it as a yellow. But yeah,
aye, yeah, no, I mean, it looked a bit like a tired tackle to me. I mean, it was a rash. He obviously had a kind of rush of blood to the head, and he thought he might have had a chance of getting to the ball or whatever. But it's tired. You can see it's a really leggy tackle. It's late. He's not thought about it, and then obviously that affects how the game goes from there.
and the frustrating thing for me is we live in a world of football now that you get 5 subs in a game. He's got Kenna, Doyle
Exactly.
Hayes, sitting on the bench. If a player keeps committing fouls, and as you say, they're looking leggy, just take them off. I,
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
I can understand to an extent. McGuinness is just back. He was having a fantastic game. That's a really frustrating point for me.
I mean, the only thing I can think of that Johnson's maybe left him on for is that he doesn't think the game's put to bed yet. And he wants to keep his kind of strongest core on the pitch at that point in time, quality wise, to
Yeah,
maybe get a second goal. So there was maybe that fear factor there from him. If I bring him off, it might change the shape that we play. Because Kyle McGuinness is great at picking the ball up and driving and carrying you 20, 30 yards up the pitch through dribbling or beating a man. So he's maybe thought, if I get another 5, 10 minutes out of him here, but obviously that was an error.
aye, but I think the real error came from not making the correct sub afterwards. I think was it
Yeah,
just before?
yeah.
Yeah, no, because he just brought Yuan on, and then like 2 minutes later, McGuinness got sent off. Is that the correct run of motion? I think that's how it worked.
Think so. Think so.
Yeah. And then obviously after it happened, he didn't really do anything to change it. I felt that the game was screaming out for someone to just kind of shore up the midfield because we
Hmm.
essentially had two midfielders in the middle of the park, and then as mentioned earlier, you've got Kenna sitting there. Did we end up going to a back four? See, this is where I need Ewan because Ewan
Yeah,
remembers
we
all
did.
these
We
things.
did. We did. Yeah, we did end up going to back four.
Yeah,
Um, but I think we were still 1-0 up at that point.
yeah,
I think we were still 1-0 up at that point. So we had something. We had a lead to defend. We had 3 points to defend. We just had to see the game out. And I think there was a lot of times where you would use the phrase game management
yeah.
that maybe weren't carried out properly, giving away possession cheaply, stupid fouls. And St Johnstone are a team that historically win trophies and gain points from set pieces,
Yeah.
and they scored their 2 goals from set pieces.
And the thing that frustrates me is we were discussing it at our seats, as you know, everybody that goes to a football game has got their panel of
Their
experts
pals
where they
around
sit.
them.
Yep, you've got
Uh,
your pals that are your panel of experts. I'm with my pals that are a panel of experts, and we deducted the fact that we went down to 10 men has hee haw to do with the fact that we conceded from set pieces. It's so annoying because the first goal. Let's just get fired straight into these things. The first goal, Porteous does that, and 7 times out of 10 the referee gives a free kick. When he doesn't give a free kick, Jesus Christ, he looks stupid, doesn't he?
it looks ridiculous.
Yeah,
I was speaking to somebody, whether it was on Twitter or on a Twitter space or something like that, and it was after we played St Mirren, he bought a cheap fill for the same thing. And my words were, referees will eventually become kind of wise to it, or he'll get the reputation that he's doing it in order to get himself a fill. So it will
yeah.
come back to bite him at some point, and it just happened to be Friday night, didn't it?
Because
You know,
realistically, Nicky Clark, he's the one that got the first goal, wasn't he?
yeah, and he's tiny.
He's the smallest player on the pitch, mate. You cannot allow from a set piece the smallest player on the pitch to score, especially on your centre back. Ah,
See, in my
so
mind, there,
annoying.
like I don't want him to look for a foul. I want him to be strong and go and win the ball. Be a proper leader, take responsibility, and just clear it away. Like he's a great header of the ball. He probably could have got 20+ yards on a good header there. He would have got his team out of trouble. In essence, I can see what he's trying to do by gaining a foul, taking the pressure off. But you don't always get them, as you say. And it wasn't as if it was a push in the back. It was very, very soft,
It was a
very
hand in the
soft.
back, man. It's there's a couple of people that are trying to give Ryan Porteous a certain reputation, and for me, I don't think it's warranted. I think everybody in the modern game kind of falls under gamesmanship.
It's
I think it's
yeah,
just
it's
kind of part and
football.
parcel. Yeah, but he is kind of getting that reputation now, which is really annoying. And he needs to stop because those are two really bad evidences of him not doing particularly well with defending. Ryan, talk
Yeah.
us through the second goal because I had to go through the pain of the first one.
Oh,
Yeah.
so again, typical St Johnstone set piece. To be honest, at that point, I thought that if they got another set piece, they might be knocking at the door because of the manner that we conceded the first goal.
Aye.
And like it is just an absolute chaos back there. And I wouldn't necessarily say that Stevie May's like known for his aerial prowess,
No.
and he's absolutely bullied them, absolutely bullied them. And there's just bodies all over the place, and who knows what's going on.
The only thing I will say in defence of it's not an excuse to go down to 10 men and concede from set pieces. Like you will be practicing in the starting 11 set pieces, and then you'll have your own roles and stuff throughout the game. So there might have been confusion over that. But for
There
me,
could have been.
I don't want to put all the blame on one player because it's not fair. But it is two self-made mistakes from one player, which is really annoying. I don't want to throw Poachers under the bus, but he needs to be better in those situations because he did
Yeah,
deal with them both very poorly.
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't like to start pointing the finger at individuals, but we have been pretty high in our praise from this season. So I think, given given the severity of the two errors, I think it's probably fair enough to say, look, you made 2 big errors there.
Aye.
You do need to be better because you are a player of higher quality than
Yep.
what you've shown with those two incidents. You know, it's not necessarily throwing him under the bus. I think he'll probably be very disappointed himself.
I would hope so. I would hope so. Like just out of a
Yeah,
mentality thing, I'd like to think he's got a strong enough will and mind to make those mistakes and understand that he needs to do better and it kind of egg him on as opposed to just kind of shy away from it. pointing the blame on others because, as we
Yeah.
know, Ryan Porteous is a fantastic prospect. He's a great defender. Everybody has
He's,
their good
listen,
days
he's
and
been
bad
great,
days.
Harry.
Yeah.
Absolutely, he's been unbelievable this season. Like, don't think he's had any mistakes that have led to goals. I don't think he's put a foot wrong in any of the games. So these two mistakes, fair enough. Hopefully that's the end of it for him in terms of errors leading to goals. He just gets them out of the road, gets his head down, and gets on with it again.
Aye. And then, being honest, it was 1-1, and then Craig was like, "Oh, come on, we just need to get a draw out of this now." And I said to him, I was like, "Craig, it's embarrassing. We're playing against St Johnstone. If we don't win this, it's not good enough." And obviously, we end up losing 2-1. So not ideal, not ideal. Come the end of the game, there was one chance, but I'm going to
Big
wrap that
Craig.
up. Hey, won the Craig. But we're going to wrap up the next segment in the one bit. But yeah, your overarching feelings of the game. Obviously a bit of a roller coaster. You get the high of being 1-0 up, and then you get the low of somehow throwing away yet another game against St Johnstone. Were there any positives to take forward from the game?
Yeah, there was positives. There was positives. I think that the fact that Lee Johnson showed he was willing to change shape and personnel was a positive before the game even started. It showed that he maybe seen that he was a bit naive going into the Celtic game, trying to play so open. He thought about changing shape, trying to get the most out of certain attacking situations. Obviously, Kukarevich scoring a good goal for a lovely Chris Cadden cross. The intensity that we played in the first 20 minutes for it, but for me as a fan, always, like, I'm absolutely delighted with the attendance and the show that they put on. Violin's not for everyone, right? It's certainly not for me, but it's good to see that the club are definitely trying to do something toward getting the attendances back to a high level. And the ticket scheme is brilliant. I hope it returns again.
Not 100%, mate. As we say, we're all for the people. You are nicknamed Connolly for a reason, and we are
Power to the
all for.
people.
Yes, and we are all for every football being for everyone, which on Friday night it certainly was, even if it was St Johnstone fans leaving happier. But the next key segment I think we need to touch on, we were the first ever Scottish football match, well, professional football match. Greg's been involved in many a VAR, as he likes to mention on the pod. We are the first top flight Scottish professional football match that had VAR present. And being honest, I thought it was an absolute bollock. I don't think it
Yeah.
added anything productive to the game. I think that the fact that they're checking every goal for VAR mistakes is ridiculous. VAR for me should be as minimal as possible, and in an ideal world, every game it would be used.
Yeah, so for me, I would say that VAR should be in the background.
Yeah,
The less you hear about it, the better it is for the spectacle. I also, and it might be controversial for me to say this, but I think there should have been two other things that happened before VAR was introduced.
okay.
The referees are not full time, so they're using equipment that full time referees down south and across Europe are using, and they're using it all the time. They're training on it all the time. They're going to seminars and courses about it all the time. We've got our Scottish refs who are part time using this very high technical system. And the other thing we don't have is goal line technology, which is a very basic thing, man. Nowadays, you get it in like some of the most obscure grounds in England.
Yeah.
So for me, I would have brought those two things in first. Whether that's controversial or not, I don't know. But touching on VAR itself, I thought it was a whole clusterfuck, man. Like, it seemed as though at one point they didn't know what they were doing. The incident with the potential penalty claim,
That's the
like,
yep.
I didn't know if it was a penalty, an offside, a free kick, or what, a goal kick. I didn't know what was going on, and that kind of comes from them not knowing what was going on.
Okay, and a couple of frustrations from me. One, the offside that they actually gave on Tavares, that's just
Yeah,
absolutely, like, that's the reason I hate VAR. If you look at that bloody stupid freeze, football's not played in freeze frames, so why did they
yeah.
keep using them? See what they should do. They should, in full real time motion, let the referee watch it back at full speed. If the referee deems it as offside and he can see it's clear and obviously offside, it's offside. Tavares, even from that frame, even if he is an inch off, that is not offside. That doesn't give him any advantage at all. You're only offside if you've got a clear advantage from putting yourself in a position you shouldn't be in my opinion. So the fact to give these stupid feckin' things based off of, because you can never be precise with these. It's
I
so
love it when you're angry, bud.
stupid. Oh, honestly, it winds me up to no end, mate. I just think the whole
Well,
VAR system is so stupid.
It's
Ugh.
ridiculous. The other thing is like, see, because it's not a straight line.
Yeah,
You're not
exactly.
the camera angle is not straight across the line that they were
Aye,
running. So when it comes to drawing lines and all the rest of it,
they're
it's
guessing.
pathetic. It's pathetic.
And
But what they don't check is, for me, they don't check properly when the ball left the foot of the player that was passing the ball. And if you ever try to look at it, it's quite pixelated, right? So see if it is like a matter of a ball here. How can you be sure that the ball is away from the player's foot at that point?
if you want to find a stupid one, I cannot remember who tweeted it, but some Celtic fan tweeted a video from a free kick from the what do you call it, Joe Hart, and it put it up the pitch, and then it showed the video, and the guy looked about 10 yards on side, and then it showed it from a different, and then he's like, "Can the SFA explain this?" And then someone showed a screenshot from the game, and then this is the one time I'll allow screenshots, and the guy's standing 4 yards offside when the ball's kicked, but because he's got that video out of context, you think, "Oh, that's a terrible decision." It's so
Aye.
stupid that fans watch things on the TV, like including the VAR TV, and they're like, "Oh, that's football." It's not. Watch it with your eyes, and then bang, knock them out. God. But before I have an absolute meltdown,
Are you going to
let's.
burst a blood vessel, man?
Oh, again, never mind. But let's do two players that we thought had a good game, and then we can try and have some positivity to end it. I'll kick off. Haha, you can have the. Well, to be fair, I think my
Oh
ones are
no.
relatively obscure. So the villain of the day, well, potential villain of the day. It was between the two of them. But I thought Kyle McGuinness, I thought he looked right at it. I think that he carries the ball so well and he just kind of puts some momentum in this team as soon as he's in it. He's such a nice player to watch. He's the type of player that everybody wants in their midfield. He is quite
Mhm.
John McGinn-esque, McGinn-esque, when he was at his peak in terms of just bombing the team forward with momentum, carrying the ball. I love watching him. Obviously, silly second yellow, not acceptable. Needs a bit of a cuff around the ear, and then hopefully he can get on and get back at it. And I thought Rocky Bashiri was immense, and I know he's kind of in
For
that
sure.
easy. There's no easy roles on a football pitch, but people say it's easy being in the middle of a three. But he was immense in the air. He's so much better this season with the ball at his feet. And realistically, performance by performance, there's not been a better Hibs player in the team this season, in my opinion. I don't think he's put a foot wrong all year, which when we signed him by accident, I don't think any of us foresaw. So fair play to him for continuing to prove people wrong. I thought he was excellent.
Yeah, no, fair play. Rock is one of the ones I was going to say. It's good that you brought him up. As you say, per game, he probably has been one of the standard performers. You know, so the two I would go for is obviously Kukarevic. It was nice to see him actually getting off the mark properly.
Yep,
The
definitely.
officials not ruling this one out. He looks like he's getting better and better each game. He's going from strength to
Definitely.
strength. He's kind of settled in really quickly, and it was good to see Karen operating in one of his preferred positions. It just kind of gives him the license and the freedom to get forward in a situation where they can overload the fullbacks. And obviously, you've seen for Kukarevic's goal, it was a lovely cross. That's what he's capable of.
Yeah, definitely. And just one player, I think I have to mention. I didn't think had a great game. I don't think Jabria looked particularly comfortable at wing back. I think he had a
Yeah,
lot. He was a lot less effective. I think there's a bit of an over reliance because the way we tend to work, it's always seemed to be the case is we kind of attack a lot down one side and the other side just tends to be a bit more passive. And
yeah,
Jabria, I think, likes to have the freedom to just kind of bomb up and down. And there's a couple of times where I thought he was caught out, and he just on the ball didn't look his comfortable self, which was a bit of a shame.
yeah.
Cadden as well, I thought Cadden looked at a lot better than he has in previous weeks. Maybe second half petered off a bit, but yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
just thought Jabria he started so well, but we are seeing some of the flaws in his game of late.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I suppose it's hard for him to be consistent to the levels that he started the season at throughout the
Definitely.
course of the 30 odd games. So if we see him performing to a 7 minimum out
Yeah,
of 10 each week, you know,
exactly.
we've got a good player in our hands there. But you're right in what you're saying. It was probably because of the change in shape, it's maybe something that he's not accustomed to. He's maybe used to playing in that kind of, which he's been brilliant in up till now, obviously getting up and down the line and his passing range has been brilliant, and it's I think his dead ball delivery is quite good as well.
Yeah, definitely. But you know what? We love Jabria. Um, we love all the Hibs players, and we just hope that they get the finger at the butt and start performing a bit better on the field because it is doing our nutting, and they've got a
Get
great
the thumb
chance
at
to
the
do it.
arse.
Yeah, thumb at the arse. I said finger in the butt. You put it more better than me. You're more better. But yeah,
More better.
up next, I think it's fair to say this should be seen as a game in which, again, we should be expecting 3 points. St Mirren, they're off to a fantastic start this season, in fairness to them. They beat us earlier in the year. They've also beat Celtic. They won it the weekend, I believe, against who was it they were playing? They won 2-1, I think. Who did they
Dundee
play?
United.
Dundee United, yep.
Dundee United,
Um,
aye.
and the thing is with St Mirren, they've looked very good at home, but not so good away from home. They obviously pumped Dundee United away from home, but that's when they were in a very bad streak, so we're not counting that as a game. But yeah, St Mirren currently sitting in fourth above us in the league. But is this a game that you're going in expecting to win, or do you think that we should kind of temper our expectations?
Well, looking at it on paper, at home you would say that you would want 3 points from it, but there's two factors here. Given the last three games, I would have expected 6 points out of them from the three.
Definitely.
But now that we've lost the last three games, I think there has to be a reaction. So 3 points, nothing less is acceptable. We've got to turn it around at some point. You know, when you're in a bad spell, it has to turn at some point. So this is a game I would be going into wanting and expecting 3 points.
And Connolly, we're putting you in the dugout. You've picked your starting 11. Let us know who it is and what's the formation.
Um,
First of all, we're going 4-3-3, or are we sticking to the 5-3-2?
you know what? I probably wouldn't be against sticking with the formation that they played on Friday, just because it brings the best out in a couple other guys. Is McGuinness suspended for this weekend?
I would think so. I would think so because
He's
it's
suspended for this weekend.
a booking. It normally carries into the next game
Well,
because there's not an appeal.
well, in that case, because you wouldn't be playing him in the number 10, I would probably go 4-3-3 because you don't. I wouldn't say that Henderson necessarily has been playing great. So anyway, I would go Cabrera left back. I'd probably go Rocky and Porto because Rocky's been brilliant when he's played.
Do you think that
Um,
either of them will work well enough on their left foot?
well, the thing is, it worked okay at the start of the season. It worked okay. Although I wouldn't say Hanlon's been all right in my eyes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But however, I don't think Rocky Merritt's been dropped. Given his level of performance throughout the games he's played. Cadden at right back, I would say probably go with the Kenna, Newell and Campbell midfield three, Boyle, one of you, and McCurdy and Kukarevich up
Oh,
front. I mean,
that's not how we play here, Ryan. Are
all right,
you
okay
going
then.
for you and or McCurdy?
Do you know what, man? McCurdy needs a chance to play. He needs a proper go for the start, not Celtic away. He needs a game where he can get on the ball, he can run at players, because I still don't know what kind of player he is. I don't know where he plays. I don't know what he does. So he needs an opportunity to show everybody this is what I can do. You know, he's going to have a wee bit of fire in the belly now, you would think. Thinking, I'm wanting to play games here. I've come up here for a decent fee to play games. You know, give me the chance. So if he does play from the start, he's going to have a bit about him.
And the thing is, as well, like I know the standard of football he was playing, that's not very good. It's not up to Scottish football standard, realistically. But he banged in the goals, and no matter what level you're at, it's difficult to bang in the goals that consistently. So,
Yeah.
and I fully agree. I don't know if he's a player that's getting the ball over the top of defenders and running onto it. I don't know if he's demand the ball at feet and try and skin three men and put it in the box. Like we need to see him, and we need, as you say, Celtic Park and a new system is definitely
Yeah.
not the way to make your stamp on
Introduce
the team.
someday.
Yeah, when your team's getting beat 6-1 and you're a striker, it's not normally your fault, to be honest. So yeah, hopefully we can see it. You know what? I actually agree with that team. I like it. I, you can't drop Porteous given the season that he's on. And me personally, I agree on Rocky. So I don't think Hanlon deserves to be warranting to be dropped. I don't really think he's done anything wrong
No,
this
I know.
season.
It's a tough one,
But
isn't it? It's a tough
yeah,
one. That's maybe why you would maybe veer towards playing the three centre halves
yeah.
because they've all been all right. But then you're totally changing your shape. And without McGuinness playing in the number 10, I wouldn't play Henderson in there because he's not hit the levels this season. So for me, that would change the shape of the team.
But you know what? You know what? Let's yeah. I'm going to just go back on what I said. I'm trying it. I'm putting. Oh, oh, you know what? I'm going funky. Are you ready to go funky?
Let's go for it.
We're gonna go Jabria left back. We're gonna go with the three centre backs: Porteous, Boyle, Hanlon. Middle of the park's gonna be
Coaches
Neo,
Boyle and Hanlon.
Porteous, Porteous, Rocky, and I'm baked, mate. I've been working all day. Uh, Porteous, Rocky, and Hanlon. And then we're gonna go Boyle right wing back. Oh,
Wow, we
yeah. And then
Gary
we're gonna
Neville.
go We're going to go even more funky. In the midfield threes, going to be Kenna, Campbell, and Henderson. Oh, we're all kinds of changes. Yeah, Joe Neal. It was not been terrible of late, but I think just freshening it up after what I thought was a pretty poor performance from him
Aye,
the other
yeah,
day.
no, that's fair. That's
Um,
fair.
then up top, we're going to go for Kukarevic and McCurdy. Boom.
Nice.
I'm going to get
Aye,
absolutely roasted for that team, and I don't care. I'm going to say it anyway. It's not going to happen, but I'm going to say it anyway. Yeah,
stick it to the man.
yeah, to the people. Yeah, come on. But yeah, that's a very funky team that's not going to happen. But I think it'd
It's
be
a bit
fun.
different. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know. It would be. There'd certainly be goals, but there'd be goals conceded too. I think.
they'd be all in the wrong end. Yeah, so maybe that's the reason why I'm not yet the Hibs manager. Um,
You'll
but
get
yeah,
there one day, though.
exactly. We live and we learn, mate. And
That's
let's
it.
let's move on to the most important question of the pod before the real most important questions of the pod. Ryan, give me a score prediction.
2-0.
To who?
Uh, Hibernian.
Yes. And who's nabbing the goals for us?
Kukarevich will get one, and I feel like there's going to be a goal from a centre half. So Porto.
Oh, mate, should have got Rocky involved. That'd been a nice comeback
I
story.
know, but I don't know if he's going to play though. This is the thing.
Yeah,
He's in
true.
my team. He's in my team.
Yeah, yeah, and to be fair, Porteous he's got 2 goals this season, so he's not doing too bad. To be fair, if Liam had his way, Porteous would have about 45 goals this season. So two's a good start. But for myself, I was a bit ambitious saying 5-0 against St Johnstone, but based on the first half, it could have been. You never
You
know.
weren't far off it, to be
Uh,
fair. 2-1's not too far away from 5-0.
I'm going to go for a 1-0 win. A 1-0 win, and McCurdy's going to get a goal. He's going to do his wee Archer celebration. I'm going to be buzzing. Yes.
I've been dying
Um,
for that since he signed, man. That's
hey,
my favourite thing about him. He's
oh,
not
I just,
even done it yet.
you know what? He's saving it for Tiny, mate. Imagine that. Imagine he scores at Tiny. He does that to the away fans. They're going to go absolutely
Oh,
daft.
man.
Oh, imagine he'd done that at Ibrox. Oh, that'd be gravy. That'd be gravy.
G4S will have an absolute Barney, man.
Oh no. But I think you know, and I think everybody on the pod knows. I think everybody listening knows. We're at my favourite point of the podcast, Ryan. Do you know what it is?
I think it must be listener questions.
Listeners' questions. As
Yeah.
always, we tweeted out and we asked you guys if you had any questions for the podcast. A lot of you seemed disgruntled, which is more than fair. But we had a happy guy who likes to tell me, after I jokingly pointed out he was giving us statements instead of questions, the lovely Jeff Ashton. And he tweeted, this is actually a picture, Ryan, so I'm afraid you can't see it at the moment. But he
Better
tweeted
not be a dick
question.
pic.
Not in public, thankfully. But Jeff asked, question for Harry MacArthur. Is this acceptable wear for attending American football, tailgating before the Stanford Cardinals on Saturday? That is more than acceptable. Just for context for people listening, not watching or seeing the Twitter, he has got a foam finger. Great start. He's also got a foam Fear the Tree. Fear the Tree? Yep, Fear the Tree, which that must be some form of... what's a cardinal? I thought cardinal was a bird.
Aye, I thought it was about 2.
Aye, all right. Well, fear the tree, apparently. Jeff, if you can let us know why there's a tree on your hand, but we approve this message. He's also got a scarf on, a cap, and there's a very happy man behind him holding is it a beer or a bottle of water. No, he's holding I'm assuming it's a tin of beer, looking very happy and amused at Jeff. So, Jeff, I don't know if that's you. You've got Ryan Poach as your profile picture. But yes, that is more than acceptable attire. You look great, and if it's not you, whoever it is looks great and very happy. So I am all for it. But the only thing is, with both foams on the hand, it's difficult to have any form of alcohol or food. So that is one
To be drinking it like
that is one consideration. If you're happy to just kind of dunk your face into food, then you're no worries at all. So for that reason alone, instead of giving it a 12 out of 10 that I was going to give it, I'll give it a 10 out of 10. Look great, mate.
fair. That's a fair assessment.
Based on my description, apologies, I'm kind of throwing you a literal blind ball here. What would you rate him based on the foam fingers and the scarf and the cap?
11 and 3/4.
11 and 3/4. We're not going to Hogwarts, but we're close. We're close. But yes, Jeff, thank you so much for that question. Next, we're going to Sean Steele, who is Greg's best friend. And Sean said, was that the game on Friday for the first time in a while? Hashtag armchair. Sean, me and you, I can relate, man. Sadly enough, his first point. Oh, so we've got a point here with a question mark at the end, so that's something worth noting. First point was really worried at the amount of times it was going back to the goalkeeper and starting again. I know Marshall is good, but is it necessary to do it so often? Opinions on that? Did you think that we kind of recycled the ball through Marshall too
Yeah,
often?
yeah, I would probably agree with that. And I think it's probably been a feature in quite a lot of the games that we've played this season. It's almost as if somebody's hitting the reset button and it has to go back to Marshall to start again. Liam will back me up on this. I've said to him a lot of times, we play passes square at the centre half and then out to the full back as well. You can totally miss that middleman out and go straight to him. And going back to Marshall's obviously happening quite a lot as well. So yeah, I would agree with that. It's quite negative.
Yeah, fair. For me personally, it's not something that I've noticed. The only thing I would say is it is nice that we've got that as an option. With Macy last year, it wasn't really like I just personally couldn't really trust him with the ball at his feet, whereas with Marshall you can.
Aye.
But as you say, it's not something that you want to do as often as they're doing. So yeah, no, Sean, thank you so much for your question. And next question, we are going to go to Ewan Mick 99, and that was far too American. I'm going to get roasted by Greg and Liam for that.
99. You're getting a
99,
WhatsApp
99.
message in about half an
Oh
hour.
God. To be fair, I've been watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Just finished it again, man, and the new season's not up. Sorry, I'm going on tangents like mad tonight. But Ewan asked, how crucial are the next four games before the World Cup now after the loss on Friday? And I'll package that up with the other two losses as well. Feel like it could make or break the season. Are these next four games that crucial?
I think they're crucial in a number of ways. Obviously for points on the board, but momentum going into the World Cup. Say you lose the last two games, for instance, the players that aren't going to the World Cup are going to be in and around the place, and it's going to be a kind of a down, depressive kind of state. Whereas when you're winning games, you're happy, you're in the clouds. And then obviously you've got the fact of putting points on the board over that period of time. If you're sitting in third place for the whole time the World Cup's on, looks nice. It's a good boost psychologically. It puts you in a good place. So I would say they are pretty crucial.
So if you're put on the spot, would you say it's make or break these four
I
games?
wouldn't. No, I wouldn't say make or break because there's a lot of games in a season.
Yeah. And the thing is, as well, you need to remember that we are getting the likes of Kevin Nisbet back. Kyle McGuinness gets a few extra months in the legs. But like last week, we were saying, I said if we were any lower than, um, if we were bottom half, I'd be disappointed. Greg said that if we were less than fourth, he'd be disappointed. Where would you stand in that question? If Hibs were a certain point, what would actually disappoint you from here?
Before the World Cup,
Correct, yeah.
fourth or lower. I'm with Greg. Fourth or
So
lower. But the
so
reason be
fifth or lower would be so fourth or higher would be acceptable.
yeah, I would say
Yeah.
so. Yeah, what we've got to remember is other teams around about us are dropping points as well all the time. Like it is happening this season where teams are dropping points. So I mean, it's not just Hibs. We're still in third place. I'm not saying that we accept the defeats that we've had, but we can still kick on.
Yeah. No, definitely. But Ewan, thank you for your question. And next, we're going to come to Haley underscore XOXO. And she asked, obviously, the McGuinness sending off changed the whole game, but does that mean the rest of our players are like have to act like three have been sent off? Also, I thought a goal should only be checked for clear and indisputable error. For all teams, it's like we are looking for anything to disallow the goal. So we'll start off with the first question. I fully agree. I don't know. I was genuinely, honestly, I was thinking in the first half, like we were playing that well, and then we're playing that badly. I was like, do we actually need 10? Like, do we actually need 11 men? Like, I was genuinely thinking, if we lost a man here, because obviously the whole thing around, when the opponents go down to 10 men, that's the only time Hibs can win games, which is still stupid, regardless of how bad we're playing at the moment. But yeah, I was actually thinking in the first half, yeah, if we lost a man, we could still do this. Like we're strolling this year, which was obviously me accidentally cursing Hibs to lose. But yeah, no, fully agree. I think the players reacted really negatively to it, and they were quite defeatist. I think there's been a mentality thing I've mentioned a few times. I've tweeted a few times about it that the club just needs to get rid of, and it's struggling to get rid of, and it really pisses me off. What did you
Oh,
What
there's
did you think of
another
that?
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I would agree with what you're saying. I would totally echo that. To be fair, like there was in my mind, I always think of the saying, when teams go down to 10 men, they come out fighting. That wasn't the case on Friday. Do you know what I mean? There was absolutely no reason we still couldn't play the way we were playing, being a wee bit more reserved and still grinding out the result.
exactly. And then the second part of that was in terms of VAR, I thought a goal should only be checked for clear and indisputable error. They were checking it for every goal. The Hibs goal, no need to check it at all. The Porteous first one potentially could check it for the push. You shouldn't, in my opinion, but you could have checked it just in case. Then their second goal, there was no problem. I don't know why Barry had to announce over the speaker that it's being checked by VAR.
Yeah, no, that's ridiculous. It probably does feel like they're just trying to pick up on any little thing to disallow the goals.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you see it happening in English football a lot. Sometimes it's something we getting checked. You think, what's happened?
Yeah.
So hopefully that doesn't become a feature in the Scottish game, which I fear it will.
I think it already is, to be honest. We
And it
won't
takes
touch on
away
it
the fan
because
experience, doesn't it? And that's the
that's
biggest thing for me is fan experience, man. So say we celebrate and go absolutely bananas at Tiny, and then it comes up, or the announcer says goal being checked. Like your heart is going to sink, man. Fair enough, you can celebrate a second time, but you're on the edge. You're just teetering, waiting.
because everybody hates forced celebration, and you do kind of have to, because as you say, it is kind of that high to instantly be like, oh. And
Shit, what if
yeah,
this gets disallowed?
exactly. And even after, if it is allowed, that second celebration, it's still like kind of mitigated somewhat. So yeah.
And I tell you this now, if it got disallowed, I'd be walking out of Tiny because I couldn't face them cheering at me, man.
Oh no, I hate them. I hate them all. Aye, but let's not talk about my antics at Tiny. But Haley, thank you so much for your question. If that was essentially Haley, you telling us that you hate VAR, we're all with you. Stick it to the man. Yeah.
Stick it to the man. We're on board with you.
Yes. And then you know what? We didn't save it till the last question last time. So John, I know you're disappointed, but we're going to pop you in the middle of the pack here today. But John said he's not got another question. Blame Hibs. But his main question, do you know it, Ryan? John McIntosh.
It rings a bell. It rings a bell. So, what are you having for tea, Harry?
Yes, I'm just back. I've not had the chance to go for a shop yet, but I do have spaghetti sitting in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fry some garlic, cut up some garlic, fry it. I'm going
Oh,
to cook some spaghetti, pour it in there, and just get some nice garlic spaghetti on the go, mate. It's just
you ever
something
thought about?
bland and light, mate. That's it.
Have you ever heard the phrase Michelin star?
Oh,
That sounds like you, my
yes.
man. That
Ken,
sounds like you.
that's it. Me and Gordon Ramsay are going to go 1-1, long bangies, and then cook off, and then I'll win them both. It'll be great.
Long bangies.
Is that not what you called it?
I don't know.
What?
Anyway.
No, wait. When you're playing when you're both in an AstroTurf pitch and you're
Oh,
shooting
right,
across,
aye.
you do you not call that long
No,
bangs?
no. Come on, man. I'm feeling like a totally different neck of the woods. We called it Whitey.
What do you mean whitey?
I don't know. That was just the name, man.
Yeah.
Listen, this is generations old. How did they make the name?
All right. What is good? Whitey?
Aye, I know. Strange one, isn't it?
All right. Let's avoid whitey. Let's avoid long bangers. But not see that's because I assume that's where they got their name from. Nah.
I don't know. You'll need to ask.
All right, well, long bangers, if you're listening, then let us know because that's long bangies. It's kind of close to long bangers. But anyway, let's move on from that because you thought there was some form of sexual connotation to it. So Ryan, what are you having for your dinner tonight?
So, it's my turn to cook tonight. So, whenever I'm cooking, I cook the greasiest, filthiest thing going. So, it's Aberdeen Angus quarter pounder burgers, big slab of cheddar cheese, wee bit of lettuce, keep the missus happy, and French fries. Very simple, very greasy.
Do you have any sauce on your burger?
Yeah, barbecue sauce on a brioche bun.
Oh,
I
where's
know.
my invite, mate? Where's my invite?
How unhealthy. Man, I'll pay for your flight up. I'll take your chartered flight.
Yes. Oh, mate, that sounds different gravy. By the way, that sounds unbelievable.
Tastes
Oh,
like.
yeah. Well, now my spaghetti doesn't sound very Michelin. It sounds very terrible, which it is. But I'm
It
glad
sounds
that you're
very
getting
grown
some
up
good
in
scran.
comparison to a couple of
Yeah.
burgers, man.
Mate, you've got lettuce. It's all healthy.
I know.
But yes, John, we love you. Thank you so much as always for the question. And now we've got one from Ali Gair. Apologies if I've butchered your second name. Gair. I'm assuming that's Gair. Geyer? But they've got two questions. First one, why can't Lee Johnson get the right balance in midfield? Newell and Campbell always in there. It doesn't work. It's clear to see. Uh, I, I don't like. I think that those two with Doyle Hayes is a lot worse than I think the bad combination always tends to be Newell and Doyle Hayes as opposed to Campbell. Like I think that's what we've seen from this season with Campbell taking strides on and Newell playing a bit better for the most part. But I agree that in that game on Friday, the midfield did look a bit lost at times, especially in the second half.
Yeah, I think it's always a go-to area as well for disgruntled fans. They'll
Yeah.
always say, and this isn't in reply to the question that's been asked, but in general, I see a lot of things on Twitter popping up after a defeat. Never see that front midfield three again. Don't want to see these two playing together again. I think it is an area that's highlighted quite a lot. But as you've said, there's been a lot of times in the season where we've been winning games, and the midfield have been the key part of that. In isolation, I really like Doyle Hayes, but I do think him and Newell are quite similar. Maybe not in their style of play, but in the way that they operate around the pitch. So they don't work together as well as other combinations, which is a shame because they're both really good players in their own right.
Mate, yeah, you summed that up perfectly. No further comment from Harry. But Ali has a second question for us, and he said, "Does the squad need trimmed already? And is McGeady ever coming back?" So that's kind of two questions, and one you've given us there, Ali. We're getting three questions out of you. Thank you so much. But does the squad need trimmed already, in your opinion?
So the question would suggest that McGeady's one of them that should be.
Yeah.
He's not going to be a cheap wage. So
yeah.
if he's not going to play a big part, then is he worth having on the wage bill? But there potentially could be others that maybe are on the fringes that could be trimmable. Miller and Bojang. I know Miller's the only other right back we've got, but we haven't seen him. I know he's carrying a wee bit of knock just now, but we've seen him small, as Liam would say, small sample sizes. We've seen hardly anything of him. So I'm just wondering whether they've deemed him not to be of a high enough standard.
Yeah.
He's just an
I think
example.
he's out injured, is he not, though?
He is just now, aye.
Aye.
But I just mean in general terms, we hadn't seen much of him anyway. But I don't know. Sometimes it's not bad having a big squad, but it depends what the quality and depth's like. I wouldn't necessarily say that we've got a matter of 26 guys that are of great quality, although I do think sometimes 16 to 18, we've got a decent squad.
Yeah, I always think if you're in a financial position to keep the squad, I don't see the value in trimming it down.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely a question worth asking, and I would like to see McGeady come back and actually play some football. I thought he looked relatively mediocre in pre-season. I was expecting
I
him
agree
to
with you.
hit the ground running a bit more than he did, but he didn't have too much to do, and he's one of those players as well. I think he does play up a bit to the occasion. So, if you want McGeady out, I completely understand. But personally, I want him back. Want to see how he does things, and hopefully he can hit the ground running, become a Hibs legend in his about 6 games that he's got left in the legs.
Where is he? Is he stuck in the Bermuda Triangle or something?
Oh God, not again! But yeah, I've no idea where he's at. I've no idea. Last
No,
time
I've not heard anything.
I heard of him was he was at the Celtic under-21s game or something.
Aye. We got beat by St Mirren that day, funnily enough.
All right. Oh well,
Ironic,
we've just jinxed Saturday. Thanks, Ryan.
Oh my God, I've ruined it.
Oh no. But next, we're moving on to Gav Dick, and he said, "Do you think we should try Kukarevich and McCurdy in a front two? Love the pod." Well, Gav, the pod loves you. Thank you. But he said Kukarevich and McCurdy in a front two. Well, in my randomly thrown together team, that was the front two. So yes, personally, I would love to see it. I think that on the basis of the players that we saw, I do think that we complement each other quite well. Kukarevich being the kind of big hold up guy, McCurdy being the kind of pacier guy that can get in behind.
Yeah, I'd be very open to it. I think it's maybe something that could potentially work given the formation that we played in the last game as well. If you're playing with a front two, I think it could work. I'd be happy for that. Then we get a decent look at what McCurdy's got to offer as
And
well.
for a team that'll likely sit in a bit, do you think a 4-2-4 could potentially work? Have we got a midfield two that would be strong enough to kind of hold the middle of the park on their own, or probably get flooded by a centre midfield that are a bit in form?
I think that's where we would kind of get destroyed on the counter attack, which last season they beat us basically playing counter attacking football. And I think Joe Sonesy scored in the last minute.
Oh yeah,
that's a centre half counter attacking, so they would flood bodies forward. That's what they do away from home. So why not just play 4-1-5? That would do.
Mate, famous 5, bring it back. One. And then Gav he said he would like to see it. So Gav, I would too, and so would Ryan. We would all love to see it. Maybe not the 5 or 4 up front, but the 2 up front definitely is.
Yeah, we'll cut it down to 2.
But we've not got too many questions left. We've got Jack Kell, 1875, and thankfully I'm going to read the bottom one. He says, "Unfortunately, I'm in such a shite mood. You're getting no second question today. You're safe for a week, Harry." Jack, thank you for leaving me unroasted for a change. And he said, "What his actual question was, what would your thoughts be on dropping Boyle versus St Mirren? We know what he can do, but he's been woeful recently and can't be protected forever." Personally, I don't think that he's been as bad as people are making out. I do think that he's um, not hitting the heights, especially in terms of being clinical. I think that's something that we've learned to love about Boyle from last season. He does seem a bit rusty, especially in front of goal. So I do understand frustrations towards him. However, as Liam said, and I think quite accurately, we do look a bit toothless going forward without him. So for me, I do think we kind of need him in the team.
Aye, he gives you like a certain element of flair as well, and almost like he's unpredictable. He could just turn the game in a flash, and opposition teams hate playing against that. He might have say he had a poor game on Friday. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to have a poor game on Saturday. He's the kind of player that can just turn it around game on game.
And the thing is,
And
he's that good. He could have a poor game, but he could still bring you that moment of brilliance. Like
aye, still be involved. I think also he's your marquee signing. You know, it's not
most
going to
expensive
happen.
signing ever.
They're not going to drop him. Like as much as even if we did want him dropped, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, but I do agree with the sentiment though that I think every player should be droppable. I remember even at times when John
Yeah,
McGinn was at Hibs, I was saying we should drop him just because there was times I thought he had bad spells and he should have been dropped, but he wasn't just because he was who he was.
yeah. I think there is a time where some players do need to come out of the team now and again, just to kind of
Freshen him up.
freshen them up, bring them down to earth a little bit, and make them realise like maybe I need to put my socks up here. And sometimes sitting from the outside looking in, you realise, oh, okay, things haven't been going as well as what I thought they have been.
Yeah, no, absolutely, fully agree. And then we got Matt Gilchrist, and he asked who will last longer in their job. He said Lee Johnson or Rishi. I'm assuming he means Rishi Sunak. Who do you think will last longer?
Who's Rishi?
The new Prime Minister.
Hey, that's your answer, man.
Oh God, exactly. Hopefully, there's going to be a general election at some point. We're not going to get too political because that's not what we do on the pod. But
That's for a different podcast, Gav.
yeah, but I think I speak on behalf of both of us when I say British politics is an absolute joke. They've
It
embarrassed
sucks ass,
themselves,
man.
and
Yeah,
it
yeah.
sucks ass, man. That is a beautiful way of putting it. But yeah,
Do
no,
you know
it's
what though?
it's
See, in a weird way, I'm absolutely delighted they're making a complete arse of it because it shows that there's massive flaws everywhere in it.
yeah, no, it's terrible. There's now this a sec. Wait, no, sorry. This is now the third prime minister that's been voted in that nobody in the UK has voted. Mental, mental.
Crazy.
But we've got one final fan question. I've got a question for you after the fan question.
Okay.
But we've got Lewis Connor. He said, did Lee Johnson make a poor decision in not taking McGuinness off earlier before the red card? As he seemed to get Mykola sub spot on, as he was likely to get a second yellow too. So if it came down to it, and in your opinion, is Lee Johnson partly or fully responsible for Kyle McGuinness getting sent off?
We're speaking about this now with the benefit of hindsight.
Yep.
So, see, had we taken him off before that happened, maybe the fans would be wondering what he was doing. And then because he got sent off, the fans are wondering. Bear in mind, I'm a fan too, so
Yeah,
obviously I've got my own views.
for sure.
So we're thinking, why did we not take him off? Going down to 10 men, I don't know if you can solely blame Lee Johnson for it because it was a stupid tackle. It was one of those, it's not a critical part of the pitch. They're not in the counter attack. They're not pressing forward. So I don't know if you can actually blame Lee Johnson for it. I think he was trying to secure the win before he started to rotate the players. So I wouldn't say that all the blame lies on him, but he has to carry the can for part of it.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair way of putting it, and I agree. I think he does need some responsibility, but as you say, it's a lot easier to say in hindsight. So, we'll leave that at that. And then what do you call it? My dad actually has sent in the question.
Big
Honestly, we're,
Franny, how you
we're
doing, buddy?
a big Fran the man. He said, I was checking out the tab, I don't know what that means, last night, and we've brought in 15 players or whatever, and only three start last night. He's not counting Boyle as a new player. And then he said, why recruit all these players and not play them? We should have added 5 or 6 quality ready-made players rather than go Jambo style and just buy lots and see what sticks. He said, this is a question for your podcast if you can condense it, lol. Being honest, I did have to condense it, Dad. We need to work on your syntax. This was not a well put together question or paragraph, so me and you can have words off the pod on that, Dad. But I agree to an extent. I always think it's difficult because obviously in an ideal world, every signing you make is going to be quality and ready made, but it was a big turnover. The thing is, for me, we've had the big turnover, but for me, I think it needs to be a big turnover with a big culture change. And I don't think we've had that, and that's where the problem lies for me.
Yeah, yeah, but you do see there's like a deep set culture within core members of the team. Maybe they do kind of accept mediocrity to an extent. Players that have been around the club for a long time, and maybe not even such a long time, maybe 3-4 years, and the culture gets passed on from one to the next. And that's where a lot of that kind of mentality stuff comes from that you're talking about when it comes to defeatist, and not putting fight in like earlier games in the season against Livingston. With 45 minutes, we didn't lay a glove on Livingston. That's the kind of culture mentality that you're talking about. That is kind of deep set within the squad.
Aye. So, in essence, in terms of recruitment, I still jury's out. Definitely, I don't think you can say it's been a good summer yet, but I still don't think you can say it's been a bad one. And I know I fully understand people's frustrations, but I think we do just kind of need to sit and see how these next 4 games pan out, and then how that kind of cluster of games pan out in that short window at the end of December before Christmas, or sorry, before New Year. So for me, in terms of recruitment, I'm not criticising it yet, but I do understand why you'd be critical of so many players coming in and only 3 starting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You would hope that bringing in that number of players, there would be more than 3 of the quality to be in the first 11, given how most of the team played last year. So yeah, I can fully understand it.
Right. But one question I've got for you, Ryan, is actually a Harry submitted question I've just submitted from my own mind just now.
Okay, thank you.
I think that something you don't go too in depth, but I know something that you're passionate about is Hibs' connection to Ireland. I think it's something that a lot of fans don't really know too much about, but I know that you personally have got a strong connection to Ireland. But can you kind of talk about the Hibs connection and why it's so important to you and why you think it should be important to the club? I know it's something that you could talk about for hours, but if you could summarize it, why is it a special thing for you?
So my grandmother came over from Donegal during the 1950s. She came over for work when she was 15 to work picking potatoes up in Dunfermline. And when she was living in Dunfermline, she resided in the Cowgate in Edinburgh. And obviously that's where the club were formed. So when I was being brought up, that's the kind of route that I was shown. This is who you support and this is the reason why. So with the kind of family links, it meant a lot to me that not only had my granny come from Ireland, but the club had come from there as well. And it gave all the people within that community a purpose at that sense in time. And that meant everything to them, and it was a community thing. It was a fibre of their DNA. So I think that going forward, the club deserves recognition for where they came from and what they stood for, like proper working class people that we think we're in a crisis now, but I mean, when you think back to then, they were really in a crisis, and Hibernian Football Club at that point in time was all that these people had to look forward to, and that's really relatable for us as well, because for me, I knocked my pan in all week so I can go see Hibs on a Saturday, and I know that the majority of the people that are standing in the stands as well are in the same situation. So I think where the club is born from to now, the situations are so parallel to each other. And that's one of the main reasons that I've got that kind of a connection to that side of the club. And it means a lot to me, and I hope it means a lot to the other fans as well.
Yeah, because I think personally, I'm fully on board. It's something that I'm still trying to educate myself on more and more. But I do think there's a larger contingency, especially in like the new era Hibs fans that are starting to be more try to tap in more to that heritage. You're seeing a lot more tricolours and stuff at games, which personally I'm all for. I think it's part of the roots. I would also love to see more saltires as well. I don't see any problems with Scotland flags being at Hibs games. I'd love us to be branded as both a Scottish and an Irish club. But yeah, no, fully, I'm touched by that story, man. That was lovely. And just to say, Ryan was not expecting that question. I just dumped it on him because I thought it's something that
I didn't
personally
have
I think
any
is
time to
important.
prepare for
And if
that. Yeah.
anybody ever wants to know more about Hibs and more about Ireland, Ryan is 100% your man. You can find him on Twitter. He'll be added in the tweet, don't worry. But yeah, Ryan, that brings us to the end of the podcast. I've had such a fun time speaking to you. Thanks everybody for your questions as well. We really appreciate it. And yeah, we will catch you next time.
Been a pleasure. I'm on the cabbage.
Goodbye.